Regional Affairs Committee for Tuesday, May 25th, starting at 5 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll start with committee business. The first item on the agenda is approval of the summary minutes of April 27th, 2021. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? I'll mention that the individuals on the meeting are committee member, Council Member Leander Kraft, Chair Han Tran is available, so he's not here, but we are joined by Council Member Lydia Acefa Dawson and Council Member Greg Baruso. If there are no comments on the agenda, may I hear a motion to approve?
Yes, Councilmember Kochmar, I move approval of the summary minutes for April 27th, 2021.
Thank you. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. So the minutes are approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the Federal Way Community Center water heater tank replacement bid acceptance. Let's see, who's going, Autumn, are you going to be presenting that? There
yes,
you are.
I apologize.
Hi there. You're doing fine.
My volume was down, so let me pull this up really quickly. Good evening, Councilmember Kochmar and committee members. Yes, I will be presenting on the Federal Way water heater tank replacement bid acceptance this evening. The policy question that we have is, should the city accept the bid from Northwest Thermal Hydronics for the Federal Way Community Center water heater tank replacement in the amount of $49,545? We came to FedRAC approximately, it was either last month or the month before, I apologize for not having that date in front of me, and asked to go out to bid for these water heaters. It is something that is overdue. I've also got Leaf on the line to sort of touch on this, but it was something that was overdue. We went out to bid, and in turn on May 7th, when bids closed, we had one responsible bidder. And so that one you can see here is attached. It is Northwest Thermal Hydronics. We originally anticipated that the cost for the replacement of these water heaters would be in the range of about $33,000, which is what we discussed when we asked to go out to bid. It has come back that construction costs in general and labor costs are significantly higher right now than they have been before. So the expense for this replacement, which is overdue, has gone up slightly. If there's any questions, myself or Leaf would be happy to answer them.
Actually, Councilmember Kochman, you are muted.
Well, thank you.
Autumn, just for clarification, on the report, you are stating that it will be funded out of general fund. Just for the council to fully understand, actually, this was not budgeted in general fund. If you go into budget book, page B17, we were planning on funding this with a bond, and the council has now authorized the sale of the bond. So on page B17 of the budget book, we have the water heater for $32,693. So that is assuming we sell the bond. I just want the council, I think, yes, the need is there, but I want the council to fully understand you have not really located the money for this until you sell the bond.
And
so,
just to clarify from Leaf's budget, they do have this money budgeted set aside within community center maintenance to ensure that we can move forward. That is the budget line item that we provided.
So you are so then community center is not general fund then. So how do you say, in accordance with the approved budget, this item is funded by general fund? So you are saying the money is in the community center approved budget, not in the general fund, not the one that is referred to on page B17 of the budget book.
I'll let John jump in here.
I think I can help a day, and I apologize for any confusion caused here. I believe Leaf has the capacity within his budget, and Leaf is on the call right now. I believe he has the budget capability to handle this until the bonds are sold and take care of it out of operations. And that was a mistake that I didn't catch, and law and legal, I don't believe, caught, even if potentially where we said general fund. So that's all. I own that. That's my mistake. I apologize.
Can I ask?
Councilmember Kraft?
Thank you, Councilmember Kochmar. So now I'm looking at B17 of the budget book a day, and yeah, it does say that 32,693 is allocated for the water heater. So if it's going to be used from the budget that you explained, Director Hutton, will we not need to sell the bond that is already in the budget? And do we need to amend the proposed budget then a day? Or is everything fine?
If they're not going to need it, so when we're putting the bond together, this number doesn't have to be included in there. So if what Director Hutton is saying, that they can fund these entirely out of the community, Federal Way Community Center fund, without going below the required fund balance. That is, if that is what they are saying, and the council can still approve it. Yes. So if they can fund this exclusively without going below the required fund balance and without needing the money from the bond, we don't need to amend the budget.
Okay, but if they do need the money from the bond, then we will need to amend the budget. Because it sounded to me, Director Hutton, that you're saying that LAIF was going to get it funded and then we would get it back, the money back from the bond.
That would be ideal. We would like that if we possibly could.
So that is assuming, as long as also the committee knows, the moment you fund this, you're already on the path that you will issue a bond. So, as you know, I don't see anything wrong with it as long as you are doing all of this with your eyes open. So I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Council President Honda.
Thank you. So this isn't a great deal of money, but I am really concerned about how we passed the grocery hazard or pay ordinance with a grant that wasn't written with money that we didn't have, and we didn't know what we needed to spend it on when we got it. And we've already passed that, but we haven't passed the grant that goes along with the ordinance. So we've already passed something that we don't know anything about financially, even how much money we need. And now we're doing this. I'm a little concerned that as a council, we need to be really careful of how we're spending money, because we're just coming out of a pandemic. And even though we're getting a nice amount of money from the federal government, it doesn't mean that we're okay. And I don't know that we're okay financially. You know, I think we have to be very careful about how we vote on financial issues. So if passing this means that we're saying yes to the bond, I think that's a problem. And I think that needs to be really discussed. So, thank you.
So I know that we need the water tanks replaced in order to run the facility. And also the water tanks are a very, being a risk manager, it's a very important item because those things they can get very touchy. So let me put it that way. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I just think that I don't think we can ignore the fact that they need to be replaced. So I think we need forward. And I do realize that the money issue is an issue. but I don't think we can ignore something that's critical like this. So, Ade, do you have any suggestions? Are you concerned about the budget if, in fact, we're going to have to pass the bonds, but I'm just worried, will we have the additional money in the budget to cover it?
I think a part of what Director Houghton is saying, that the community center has ability to cover it. If they have ability to cover it, then we shouldn't really worry. I think if the only way they will be able to cover it is with the bond, then the council needs to know that down the road, you're going to violate your fund balance requirement policy.
Okay.
And secondly, you are committing yourself to have the bond. Yes, I'm recommending that we need to do the bond, but the city needs to think it through properly. I do believe that if we would need the bond, this is the perfect time. And during this, later on in this meeting, I will share with you our credit rating. We are doing well, but it's not going to be my decision. It's going to be council's decision to issue the bond. So it is a perfect time to sell the bond if we're going to do that. But you don't want to be spending the money until you are ready, until you know you will issue the bond. So, but Director Houghton said if the fund can absorb it, I think, but if it cannot afford it, then
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. John, do you want to reiterate what you just said? Can the fund absorb it?
Yes, I believe so. And Leaf, will you please unmute yourself?
Yep, I'm unmuted.
Jump on with the camera, please. I believe that is accurate. Leaf, is that we're correct that you can absorb this cost?
Yes,
hopefully,
that is correct.
And then if it would be ideal if we bond it, that would be replaced for the community center. That would be ideal from our standpoint. But if you're in a position as a council that you go a different direction, we will find a way to get through this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. One other thing, John, I just want to make sure in a day that we have adequate insurance to cover for water heaters. I don't know if we need specialty insurance for that or how that's covered, but I just please make sure you look into the insurance, how it's covered for the water heaters.
Insurance will not cover this because this is just regular maintenance.
No, not the cost, not the cost. If for the risks, for what could happen
if covered. It's covered in a separate policy under mechanical.
That's what
specifically.
I wanted to ask about the mechanical. Yep. Thank you. Just double checking. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a risk manager, so I would have been asking that. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, we have.
So
just.
Are there any?
Oh, I was Ryan? Just for your information. We have the pump, the water pump at the Town Square Park, the facilities at the community center, and the boilers at Dumas Bay are all covered on a mechanical.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I see, Councilmember Kraft, your hand is still up.
Yes, Councilmember Kochmar. I was just wondering if it would be beneficial if we forward this to the business agenda so that we can kind of talk about the funding, or instead of the consent agenda. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that the proposed motion was to send this to the consent agenda, but it sounds like it may be beneficial for the whole council to hear how we would potentially have to do the bond.
All right, I'm fine with that. John, can you do that for the agenda?
Sure, it'll be either one of us will be happy to do that. Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, may I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to forward the proposed bid for the Federal Way Community Center water heater tank replacement to the June 1st business agenda.
Okay, for approval?
Yes, for approval.
For discussion and approval.
For discussion and approval. Thank you very much. All right, I second the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Motion carries. So now we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item C, It's the ordinance, 2021-2022 biennial budget amendment. Looks like we've got a day that's going to handle this one.
Yes. On page 44 of your report, we have a summary of some of the changes that we have in there. I'll start right from the top. For starters, you have the law funding. I think we've discussed some of that in the executive session, so I don't want to go more into detail. It's more of a legal settlement. That is what that is for. It's a one-time money, and that amount may actually be much less. So the second item in there is the economic development, staff and services, 20,000 and 70,000. The position that was funded in the economic development was funded for 1 year. So unless it's a temporary employee and the council didn't call it a temporary employee, so and we have a 2-year budget, so we're funding the second year. That is what that 70,000 is for. The same thing for the diversity and inclusion coordinator, 70,000 for 2022, because again, when the budget was originally approved, it was only done for 1 year. We filled the position now. It's still part-time. At some point, I think the council will have to decide whether you still want it as part-time or whether you want it full-time. But my mayor's recommendation as of now is you've already hired that position and it's now funded for 2022 to put that money in there for 2022 as funded for 2021. The other major item in there, which are to pay require minimum wages for park, the 234,000, and to hire people back. City Hall cleaning, 66,000. Security camera, 41,000. Sahelis and Still Lake Annex roofing, 170,000. Election costs, I think we're expecting that in 2021, because of the item and how much we spent in 2020, that we will need additional 100,000 for election costs, higher than we put in the budget and even higher than what we spent in 2020. COLA increase, just to be clear, I think as part of the final budget amendment and part of what Council President suggested last year, we gave 2% in 2021, and we wiped out 2022. And I think part of what our council president recommended at that time was to be able to add more to 2021 when we figure out. So what mayor is proposing is to add additional 0.5 to 2021 to make it 2.1% and make 2022 2.5% also. So that is what the 46,020 and 230 for 2022, that is what those are. The bottom line and the big number, that is 19,216,886. And I would hopefully explain this also at the council meeting. That is the total of the ARPA funding. And the funding is supposed to go through 2024. Even though I'm putting that 19 million in here, we're now going to spend all of that 19 million here. There are 4 items that we can do, that we can spend the money for. The major part of it is the loss of revenue. But the loss of revenue is for loss of revenue for 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. We've been working with them to fully understand what exactly does that really mean. Is it going to be total loss of revenue as a city or total loss of revenue by fund? Here is part of the confusion. Take the utility tax, for example. In 2019, we did not have utility tax on water and sewer. We know what our revenue level was. In 2020, all of a sudden, we got utility tax for 2020, 2019, and 2018. So would that be considered excess, or can we treat the loss of revenue stream by revenue stream? If we're able to do that, I think that would be good. If the government says, no, 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 you can't do that, it has to be a total revenue, then we may not be able to earn all of this money. Even though we didn't get enough revenue in red light, we didn't get enough revenue in hotel motel, we didn't get enough revenue compared to 2019, even in sales tax, even though we did well. But you look at utility tax, where we got 2018, 2019, 2020, all in 1 year. So I don't want to put the city in a place where we get the money and 6 years later we may have to do a refund. So I'm trying to verify and make sure before we make any claim on this, what exactly is the definition of lost revenue? Does it have to be by total city, or can it be by specific revenue code? We didn't lose money in REIT. We didn't lose money in utility tax, but we lost money in the red light. We lost money in the hotel motel. We lost money in the sales tax. But if you combine all of them, our loss of revenue will be less. So that is part of what I'm trying to struggle with. But as of now, I put that total amount in there, and Mayor and myself will be coming to you as we determine how to spend this money. It's intended to be for 2021 through 2024. So I know we're not going to spend this. But in order to allow the city some flexibility, if they will allow us to claim all of the lost revenue, I've calculated more than 13 million that we can claim from lost revenue. Whether they will agree to that, the way I came up with that 13 million is not mingling the utility tax with it. If they say, hold on, Ade, you got more money in utility, that needs to count for something, we won't be able to claim 13 million. So that is why I'm being careful to see what exactly. Will they do it in aggregate, or will they do it in the individual fund? So, but as of now, that is what I have in there. On the next page, that is for the non-general fund funds. You have, like, for street fund, we're trying to do snow and ice, because even for the start of this year, we've already blown the budget in trying to de-ice our street. Copper wire replacement, they are breaking into our system, into our wire box, stealing. So based on what Director, what EJ was telling me, we've already blown the budget for 2021 also already. So that is why we're doing this. The minus 1.5 million that you are seeing in the Ontario Overlay Fund. This is, again, creating a separate fund for the 10% utility tax for the garbage, so that, again, you can see how much is being collected for this 10% and how much is being spent. In the original budget, we budgeted that 10% in total in the we budgeted that in the Ontario street. What we've done is we've created a separate fund, which is about number line 8. From that minus 1.5 million, you see SWR 10% utility tax fund. That is creating a brand new fund to track the 10%. As time goes by, citizens will be coming to you. You are charging me additional 10% for garbage. What are you doing with it? So we have a separate exclusive fund to track that 10% and to track that spending. So because we budgeted the amount before in the Fund 108, we're reducing that Fund 102, and we're creating a new Fund 116. It was originally 1.5, but we think now it's going to be about 2 million. So that is what that 1.5 and 2 million is. We are creating a new fund with this budget amendment to be able to track your 10% additional money for garbage. That makes it clear, that makes it easier to be able to determine what is being collected and what is being spent. CDBG, that is just recognizing the grant that is coming in and what they're spending. IT building permit fee for the technology fund. All of those funds are self-supporting funds where whatever comes into their fund can only be spent there, and it's their money. So that is what is being done in their SWIM CIP project. That is, again, part of the money that may be spent out of SWIM for their construction. And another major item in there is the police vehicle replacement, which is the bottom line, the last line on that page, 248,282. That is coming out of the fleet and equipment. It's just to replace the police vehicles. So I will be glad to answer any further question on that. Councilmember Kochman, you are muted.
Thank you. So, Council President Honda?
Thank you. So I have a few questions today. For the Steel Lake Annex roofing, is that the Historical Society house or is that the Public Works building?
Public Works building.
So if we're going to move that, if we're going to get a new Public Works site in the next several years, does the roof really need to be replaced?
Well, it probably needs to be sealed somehow.
Okay.
To stop it from leaking.
Okay.
So if we're now going to move, if it is a temporary fix, it may not be as much. But I understand it is leaking now and they need to do something about it. If the council decides that, yep, we're moving in 5 years or whatever, it may be just fixing instead of replacing.
Okay. Okay. So this money that we're getting from ARPA, does it have to be divided equally over 4 years? The 21, 22, 23, 24?
In order to be able to, because it's meant for 21, 22, 23, 24, the portion that we will spend in 21, 22 may have to be decided now. So not all of it have to be decided. We have to apply for some grant. In reading the guidelines, we need to apply for a portion now, but we have till 2024 to spend it. I think City Attorney Call probably wants to add a few more.
Okay.
No, that is correct. We have, there's two things. There are our own internal or state accounting requirements, and that's what Ade is talking about. We have to budget it in each budget cycle, but according to the feds, we have until 2024. So, and we can spend it in any way we want. We could spend it all at the end or all up front. It doesn't. There's no restriction on when we spend it.
Do they give it to us all at the same time, the entire amount at the same time?
I think it's 2 dispersals. Is that right, Ade?
Yes.
Is that 2 years apart or 1 year apart?
I don't think they're even a year apart.
Okay.
They call them tranches, and I believe one is already on its way or is here already.
Yes. Oh, it's on its way, not here yet.
It's on its way, and then I believe the next one is also this year sometime.
Okay. So can we go to the grant that we're going to be writing, or you've already written, for the hazard pay? Because I don't see that in here at all. So how much money will be put into that?
Actually, I think based on when we write a grant and whatever it is that we're doing, just like we did with CARE Act grant, that we will start be coming to you, start be giving. The amount is included, is part of this 19 million. It's not in addition, it's included. So there will have to be a way, I think as part of what maybe Tim Johnson and myself will be presenting to you in June, will be the proposed spending of this 19 million. How much are we going to spend on revenue shortfall? How much are we planning to spend on hazard pay? How much can we spend on fiber optic? How much can we spend, if we can, on police body camera? All of those things needs to come back to the council. And I'm hoping that just like we did with the CARE grant, we will come with you with the detail of how these 19 million is broken down.
So my understanding, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Well, I can answer your question about how much the grant program is going to cost. It's going to be between $550 and $650. So we're basing that up right now. We're trying to pin down a little more accurately how many employees there are, but we believe it's around 250. So, and then there will be some administrative costs. So we don't have personnel. Basically, Tim is going to propose to hire a couple people, or at least one, to do all of the grant programs that will be a part of this, and also to apply for other grants that the city might be eligible for. So that's part of the 19 million. That's a separate proposal, but just to administer this one, we probably will need to at least hire a temporary employee. So no permanent employees are proposed, but temporary employees. So that's the administrative cost of it. So all told, I think it's going to be 650 is what we're going to ask to appropriate for the grant program.
Aren't we voting on, is not coming to council next Tuesday?
Yes.
To vote on? So I'm still going to say it over and over again. We're just doing it backwards because we haven't received all the full proposal. We haven't had Tim's report on this. And then Trader Joe's sent us a letter today saying that they don't support hazard pay anymore. So I believe that they were giving their employees some hazard pay. And if they're not doing that, then we would have to add Trader Joe's into it.
Well,
so that would be
Trader
more.
Joe's actually, yeah. So
they
are included in that number, I believe. So Trader Joe's is the same size or actually a little smaller than Marlene's. And it was always my understanding that the intent was to include Marlene's. So the other part of this is the fixing or the adjustment of the definition of a small grocer. Mm-hmm. And the proposal that I just sent to the mayor's office is to increase it from 3,500 square feet at the bottom, because some convenience stores, turns out, are bigger than 2,000 square feet. And then at the top, 25,000 square feet, which would include Marlene's and Trader Joe's. So that 650 number, I believe, is meant to include Trader Joe's.
Okay.
But I'll have to make sure that they are actually including, in that. Okay. That's why I'm a little soft on the numbers right now, because they're still trying to run down try to get a better count of how many employees we're talking about. But
Okay.
it's less than 300, it sounds like.
And one more question on the salary, the COLA. We were trying to get to 3%, not 2.5. Is there any way we could get, because we took a whole percentage point away, is there any way we could get to the 3% instead of 2.5?
If that is the what mayor and council wants, even if we don't have the fund now, we can always take of 2021 and leave the balance in 2022. And as we end 2021, we can amend 2022. If that is the desire of mayor and council, we can do that.
Well, that when we voted on the budget, I thought that was what our intent was.
Okay.
What would that cost? What would that to add?
I think what for 2021 we will be looking at maybe about 92,000 instead of 46, and for 230 for 2022 we'll be adding another 46,000.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
A day, we haven't included anywhere in here money for the represented groups, right?
No.
So we will have to come back and include in a future budget adjustment. There will be money. All of the union groups are up right now, so we're going to start negotiations with all of them. So my intent is to actually brief council on the maintenance workers, the Teamsters union's proposal at this next meeting at the executive session. So we know what they're asking for, and I assume it's going to be in line with some of the other groups.
And so our unrepresentative group folks get the same, that whatever we give the representative groups.
No, that has never been the case. So the Teamsters, traditionally, we have paid them this, we've given them the same raise that the representative groups are getting, but the police department is a separate.
True. Yeah.
They're not tied to staff at all.
Yeah.
So, but yes, you're correct. Historically, we've tried to keep them on par. Complicating all this is that, we had the salary study, and the union now has in their hands documentation that we are underpaying them. So I expect that they're going to want to work their own deal, but we can talk about that more in exec session.
Okay. All right. It sounds very exciting and very concerning at the same time. And you'll be gone a day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Council President Honda. Councilmember Kraft, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. I do. Is it Ryan or who will be contacting or is it a day that would be contacting the grocers that don't fall within the square footage for the hazard pay for the grocery stores that fall below the square footage requirement for the hazard pay?
So this has all been.
I just want to make sure that somebody. Okay,
so
out of the mayor's office. So we just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure we respond to some of these grocers that are concerned.
My understanding is he's talked to anyone that's called. So if anyone's actually worried about that they might be covered by this and they're not, then we've answered that question if they've called. I don't think it was ever the intention I don't think they had the intention of calling everyone who's not affected. But if that is something that you want to see happen, you might want to bring that up with the mayor.
All right. Council President Honda, could you bring that up when you have your meeting with the mayor?
Yes.
I just think that we should be contacting the grocers that are so concerned. Trader Joe's wrote a letter, so they're obviously very concerned. And then I know that non-represented employees are bargained with differently than represented employees, but I am concerned with the fact that what they're talking about, cost of living increase in the coming years, is probably going to be higher, particularly particularly this year than in previous years. So I think we need to be, discussing that whole issue. I mean, some people have said the cost of living for this year may be around 5 or 6%, or at any rate. So I just think that we need to be aware of that. Back to the 19 million. Well, I have two other questions. The 19 million for the ARPA funds, that's all going strictly just for replacement of lost revenue a day. Is that correct?
No.
ARPA funds?
It can be spent for 4 categories.
Yeah, I remember the 4 categories.
Right. The current estimate now is 13 million for the revenue shortfall. And that was what I was explaining earlier. Whether all of that will qualify, I don't know. So we can spend the 19 million to support COVID-19 response effort, to continue to decrease the spread of the virus, replace lost public sector revenue, support immediate economic stabilization for households, address systemic public health and economic challenges that have contributed to unequal impact of pandemic. Those are the 4 categories that we can spend the money on.
So is any of that money then able to be spent for the grocer, the cashiers that we just passed the ordinance for hazard pay?
Yes, that is the intention.
Right.
The resolution explicitly references the ARPA money.
Yeah, the ARPA. Okay, then my last question then, I wasn't on the council when they passed the solid waste 17%. I guess it would be a fee because our utility tax is supposed to be at 7.75%. So the 10% for the utility tax, I think you were mentioning that today on line 8 on your page 45.
Yep.
So the increase, the solid waste. So you're saying that you want to let people know what that additional money would be spent for? What is it being spent for, or would be spent for?
No, what I'm saying is we want to track it separately. Because it's utility tax, what we did before was accounted for it in the regular utility tax.
Right.
But because the 10% is exclusively for certain things, the 7.75, we can use it, the 6%, we can use it for pretty much anything. The 1.75 is the Prop 1, which we created a separate fund for to track. So what we're doing with the 10% is creating a separate fund for that also, so that it can be really transparent to you and to the citizens.
And Ade, that was the other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, to answer your question, I mean, it is in the title. It's for overlay. So the increase, and EJ's here, maybe he's better at answering this than I am, but it was expressly for overlay projects. So the trucks damage our roads. And so as part of the internalizing the cost basically of running the solid waste program, we are asking that they pay for the roads that they're damaging.
For the additional 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that track, EJ?
Yeah. So it's to answer your question candidly, council member, it is to be used to overlay residential roads, specifically where the damage from the trash trucks is getting excessive. And the council parameters that were set up previously, we're not getting to residential roads. We can't get off the arterials and maintain the council parameters for road conditions. And we were receiving a lot of complaints about the residential roads, as was council. Okay. So the solution is it generates about 1.5 to 1.6 million a year, the 10%. Reality is we know we need somewhere around 5 million a year to get to the council's goals of having the roads be what they were 10 years ago. So it's a step one to get us to the point where we have stable roads. But it's step one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That helps. If people ask,
Yeah, absolutely.
they already have asked.
They have. We get questions periodically, and it is actually, I believe, in July. I'd have to look at my notes, but I believe it's actually on the LETC agenda to do an update on what the money from last year went to and where the specific roads and where the money is going for next year. So that is, I got to double check. It's either July or August, but I'm pretty sure it's July's LUTC meeting to do an update specific to this program.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, are there any other questions regarding this item on the agenda? The budget amendment? Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Councilmember Kochmar. I move to forward the proposed budget amendment to the June 1st, 2021 regular council meeting for a public hearing and first reading of the proposed ordinance.
Thank you very much, Councilmember, and I second that. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So now we're moving on to the AP vouchers, item number D, April 16th through the May 15th, and payroll vouchers, April 1st through April 30th. Donnelly.
Yeah.
Chase
Good evening,
Donnelly.
Councilmember Kochmar and Council President Honda and Council Committee members. Before you are the AP vouchers in the amount of $2,695,000 and payroll vouchers in the amount of $3,702,000 and change. And I would be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. My understanding is that an email was sent out with Council President Honda's questions. But I could answer those as well.
Do you know what time that email was sent out? Because I checked in right before I came on and I didn't see it.
Oh, you're on mute, Ade.
I'm sorry, I have now responded to Council President email.
Yeah, sure. Would you like me to go over?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first question that was on Council President Honda's email was, I understand the PAC is having the symphony performance in June. Does this mean that the PAC is open for business again? I did call, and the PAC is open and renting the facility at limited capacity. The second question, what about Dumas Bay? Are meetings and overnight conferences allowed now? According to their website today, the Dumas Bay Center is closed through July 5th.
That's correct.
Okay. On page 8, voucher number 277005, it says FWPS CD refund performance bond. This is for performance bond release for Lake Grove Elementary School project at 303 Southwest 308th Street. And those get released as the project occurs. So we get performance bonds and then those get released at different sections of the project. On page 12 of the vouchers, there's legal notices. It says there are charges dated from 2019 to 21. These are from Sound Publishing. Were these overlooked and not paid in 2019 and 2020, or were these not charged until now? This is for legal ads that Sound Publishing followed up with the Community Development Department on that were not paid. They were primarily for community development block grant activities that the Community Development Block Grant Manager has reviewed and verified that they're not paid, and therefore they were paid on the last check run. On page 16, voucher number 277142, dated 5/14/2021, to the City of Auburn for Game Farm Park Admin. This is rent for the Auto Theft Task Force facility billed to the City of Federal Way by the City of Auburn, and this is paid for by the Washington Auto Theft Task Force grant funds. The last question that you had noted is you said, I have noticed quite a number of charges for vehicle maintenance. Do we have enough vehicles in the city that having our own garage and maintenance staff would be a savings to us? Has this been discussed in the past? And I wrote, based on a presentation, is EJ Walsh still on the call? Is that something that you'd want to speak to? I saw that there was a presentation done by Deputy Director Winkler on May 4th of 2021, talking about the Parks and Public Works Maintenance Facility, and fleet maintenance was identified within that presentation. But if you want to speak further to that, since you're on the call.
Sure. What's the question?
So the question is, I have noticed that quite a number of charges for vehicle maintenance. Do we have enough vehicles in the city that having our own garage and maintenance staff would be a savings to us? Has this been discussed in the past?
This would include police vehicles.
Yeah, the answer to both is yes. We are way past the point of that. We don't have a physical room to do it right now, though. So that is
okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, no, you go ahead.
So that is one of the things that when we presented, Public Works and Parks presented at the study session to council a couple of weeks ago, and we said, here's the costing out and what the return would be if we added these programs into a future facility. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say fleet, including buying lifts and building a building and everything, would pencil out, and I want to say it was like 17-year payback.
Yeah, it was 17.7 years. That's
pretty good off the top of my head. But yeah, so and that is, to your point, that is factoring in police and public works fleets for everything from oil changes to tires to basically anything that's routine. It would not encompass a body shop. So any sort of the high-end custom, replacing like removing dent, like high-end dents or something like that. That work would still need to get sent out. And then there's some specialty work with all of our equipment, whether it's related to the diesel engines or related to the transmissions in the police cars, that would still need to get sent out because it's specialized work. But that was, when we looked at it, that's less than 5% of the total fleet cost. It's trivial.
Just to add a little bit more to that, I think based on the number of vehicles that we have, and they're mostly Ford product, I think having even just purely technician doing oil changes alone, we will save a lot of money because we have enough vehicles for an employee to be doing, 6 oil change a day and keep them occupied. I think we have, even in this area, smaller cities that are much smaller than we are that have their own shop and they can justify the savings just from oil change alone.
Yeah, and most of our neighboring cities have this. So this is Auburn has approached us several times about contracting us using their garages and adding staff to their city. And it doesn't pencil out doing it with them, but we've looked at it. But yeah, to Dave's point, oil changes and tires is the other big one. Especially the police, we go through a lot of tires. And we pay a premium when we take them to a tire shop to have them change a tire. So those two things alone pencil.
So how do we get from here to there to, start using our resources better? Because we have limited resources as a city, and if we can use them to the best benefit, it would benefit everyone.
Absolutely. So what we presented at the study session was a plan that, as part of a redevelopment of the maintenance yard, wherever that may end up, effectively we could, to your point, we could bond these programs. So fuel is another one that fuel pays for itself in like 9 years. It's even faster. We could essentially bond those programs and then use what we're currently paying out today to the associated vendors, and pay the bond plus buy all of the gas or tires and salaries and whatever else, and still end up ahead on an annual basis. And then year 17, it's gravy money. So it's a road to get there, but we're not increasing any budget we're just effectively taking a bond against what we're currently paying.
And it's important, I think, if we're talking about this, you also let them know that there's significant operational improvements by having these functions in-house. We spent a lot of time ferrying cars around to these places to get them fixed. They would all be local. We rely on the school district for fuel. If we ever need fuel in an emergency, we're going to have to basically either strong arm them and say it's ours now, or negotiate with them. So instead, we'd have our own tank, things like that. There's a lot of operational improvements just in addition to all the cost savings.
Yeah. So Ray is working on, to Ryan's point, Ray Gross is working on an emergency fuel plan with the state. And one of the things that has been identified is we have 0 reserves for fuel. So if there's ever the earthquake, we're up the creek. So, the answer is we would go, hopefully if there's the earthquake, the school wouldn't need or the school district would not need the buses. So we could effectively use the fuel that's there. But there's a number of things like that. And yeah, we lose a lot of time on shuttling vehicles.
So Council President Honda, is something that we really have to discuss at a retreat or something? It's an excellent point.
Well, the reason I brought it up was in these vouchers, there's a lot more vehicle maintenance that I've seen in recent months. So it was, I think we need to have the discussion to keep this moving forward. So, all right, thank you for
maybe you can put it on a future, whether a retreat or
we'll
business
find
item agenda. Okay.
Thank you for the information.
Councilmember Kraft. Sure. Thank you. Councilmember Kraft, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I just have one question. So for the vouchers at the bottom of page 19 and the top of page 20 under operating rentals and leases, I saw there were several large bills to the Humane Society for animal shelter. Can you just explain what those are to me, please?
So this is based off of city contract AG 21033, and I believe that's where we take the animals that get
so like lost animals that
get taken to the Humane Society by the police animal services department. But I could look up that contract as well.
Okay. No, thank you. That's
correct.
helpful. You're
so right,
much.
Chase. That's where we keep all the animals that are seized in the city.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions? Council President Hunt, I want to say again, I think that was an excellent idea. So I think that is something we need to move forward regarding our own facility. Is there a motion?
Yes. I move
I'll make the motion to move forward. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilmember Kraft. Go ahead.
I move to forward the vouchers to the June 1st, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you very much. And I'll second that. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So now we're going to the next item on the agenda, which is the monthly, financial report a day.
Yes. For the month of April, the revenue below year-to-date budget park and recreation fees, which because the park are still have not opened fully, so our revenue is still down. Court and probation revenue, that is also below the expected amount. Admission tax, because the movie theater, the Wild Wave are still closed. That is why all of those are below. Revenue that are above the year-to-date budget, not necessarily above what we did in 2019, but above the reduced budget. Sales tax is above by about 0.21 million or 5.6. CD permits and fee is above by 0.4 million, which is about 52 over the budget year to date. The utility tax, again, that is also above by 0.22 above the 2021 year to date budget. And business license fee, I think as I've mentioned many times, I think going with the state to register, to use their system has been a great thing for the city because when they go to the state to register their licenses, the question often come up, where are you located? And if they are located in the city of Federal Way, they are automatically required to register right there. So that has seen a better increase in revenue for the city. Uh, at the bottom of that same page 110, Lake Haven franchise fee includes no activity in 2021 due to the water and sewer utility tax being added and replacing the franchise fee. So because we had utility tax to it that we're getting, part of the agreement with Lake Haven was if we ever move to utility tax, we will no longer charge franchise fee. So if you are looking at the report, you notice that franchise fee for 2021 is pretty much empty, and it's because now it has been replaced by utility tax. On page 112, looking at the jail fund is on the year-to-date budget because the ADP is low. I remember Councilmember Kochman mentioning that we need to save up for the rainy day when the ADP will go up. And even though the ADP is low, whatever is not used will remain in that fund. And that is again why we created a separate fund of its own so that either moving money out of there or spending money will require some approval from the council so that we can track that. And a Federal Way Community Center 2021 year-to-date revenue of 221,000 is below 2021 year-to-date budget, and of course because it's still not open. And REIT 2021 year-to-date revenue of 1.2 is above 2020 year-to-date actual by 0.38 million and above the 2021 year-to-date budget by 0.22 million. So I think real estate excise tax is still doing very, very well. So if you look at on that page 113, you're able to see how the individual fund, our utility tax, doing reasonably well, our Prop 1 doing reasonably well, and those are pretty much because of the water and sewer, because compared to the year before, just almost about 1/4 down, you can see the traffic safety, which what we're doing compared to the budget. So again, as I mentioned, traffic and safety, and remember we're paying several officers, police officers, out of that fund, and we're also paying traffic engineer and public works out of that fund. So that is one of the funds that is actually having major shortfall. The same thing, Federal Way Community Center, yes, that is falling behind, and so is Duma Space Center, that is falling behind. So all of those, but are falling behind because of the COVID-19. On the next page, page 114, that shows the breakdown of our sales tax. And sales tax, at least compared to the budget, seems to be doing well. But keep in mind, we reduced the budget. So that is why it is doing well compared to the budget. And comparing it to 2020, of course, 2020 wasn't doing any better. So that is why it looks reasonably decent, is because we're comparing it to 2020 that was really low, and we're comparing it to 2021 budget that we have reduced. On page 115, the utility tax, so that seems to be doing well. And we've been working with Lake Haven in trying to establish the guidelines and what qualify for utility tax and what does not. I think the mayor sent them a letter a couple of weeks ago, and I think I spoke with the finance director today So they are working. They're actually, which I'm very, very impressed with what they're doing. They're actually auditing themselves against what we ask them to do. So there may be, I think there may be some additional money coming in based on the guidelines that we've provided for them and what they've done so far. So they promised me before the end of June, we may see some additional revenue. So I think going to page 123. So looking at some of the funds which are reasonably doing okay, but we're only talking about 4 months out of a year, so which is really good. Federal Way Community Center. So as of the end of April, the required fund balance is 1.5. They have 1.45. So, and hopefully they will be able to reach the 1.5 before the end of the year. Traffic safety. So again, the required amount is 1.2. As of the end of April, they only have 1,053,000. So they are short of where they are supposed to be. So I think so. Unless there's some question, that's the end of my highlight presentation on that.
Thank you very much today. Are there any questions? Oh my goodness, no questions. Very good. Thank you very much today. Is there a motion?
Yes. I move to forward the April 2021 monthly financial report to the June 1st, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Kraft. I second that. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much unanimously. Now we're moving on to item F, which is Moody's Investment Services, Investor Services, Ade Arula. Thank you.
Yeah. The good, as I mentioned before, and I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, I think the city has maintained for the past 6 years the AA2 Moody rating when other entities are actually losing their rating. So even despite some of the minor difficulties that we've had, they shall find us very, very worthy. So I think I'm very, very pleased with the rating. So they've affirmed our rating. So again, for 6 years in a row, we've maintained AA2 rating, which is the second highest rating. So I think we have some of our colleagues. I think I did a presentation a couple of years and show who is what and where is what and where we are compared to our comparable cities where we're doing way better than most of them. So that is just to share with you. I think I'm saying again, if the city is foreseeing borrowing money, I think this is the time because we have good credit rating and the interest rate is low. And I think if we start spending our reserve, that will affect our rating. It's one of those double-edged sword. I think, say for example, we were to lose our roof and we say, oh, well, we have reserve anyway, and we were to deplete that reserve. If you decide to borrow money at that time, because you've depleted your reserve, it's going to lower your bond rating, and that will increase your borrowing money in the long run. Now that we've maintained our reserve and we have good credit rating, this is the time to borrow money if we need to borrow money. I think it's one of those fine lines that the moment we start depleting the reserve, we will lose the credit rating. and the cost of borrowing go up. So, is
Thank
there
you,
any
Ade.
question?
Sure. Thank you, Ade. Council President Honda.
Thank you, Dave. Good job. But so if we borrow any money out of reserves, does that potentially reduce our credit rating? Any money at all?
If you spend it, and I think one of the comments that they made in there is our reserve was lower than what it used to be. My explanation to them was, well, now we have a policy. We deliberately set our policy at this level, and that is what is getting us off the hook. The moment we borrow or we spend below that, say for example, the general fund required reserve is 9 million. If for whatever reason we borrow or spend 1 million out of that 9 million, and we do our financial report and we show 8 million, that is a sign of trouble. And that may lower our rating. If we say, okay, any other fund, REIT, Dumas or whatever, if we fall below what the policy says, that is a sign of problem, and that may lower our rate. So to answer your question straight up, yes, if we spend below the policy guidelines, yes, it will. And that is also part of why I came to the council quickly when we lowered the risk. Remember, we lowered the risk reserve, and it's justifiable because I explained that to them too. We are no longer self-insured, so we don't need the 1.2 million. And they agree to that. So, but if we were to go below, if we were to keep it at 1.2 and we just unilaterally lower it to 600 or 700,000, yes, it can affect our credit.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? So, Ade, if we were to go out for a bond issuance, let's say for parks, A, what would be the interest rate? And B, don't we have to have a revenue stream that would pay for the bond?
As of now, I think if we were to go for a bond out now, I think we're looking. The way they often do it, the amount that is due within the next 5 years will have the lowest rate because they know today the interest rate is low. The further away it goes, the higher the interest rate is because they say, well, we don't know what the rate will be 10 years from now, so we're not willing to lend you money at 1%. So if we were to go out today, I think the average combining the short term and the long term over the 20 years, I have the feeling will probably be around 2%.
Okay,
and
but don't
how
you
we are
usually...
going to
Go ahead.
Sorry. How we are going to pay for it before we get totally comfortable with the money from water and soil. If you commit that to something, I think one of the advantage why the city of Federal was still doing very well, when we started the utility on water and soil, we did not budget to spend it. So when the money came in, we haven't spent it. It just became an extra money. Before we get comfortable and start budgeting for that money, if you committed to something like that, it will put you in a better position. If you use that excess money for additional stuff, for all of that, then you're back to square one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? This was discussion only, information only. So thank you very much today. I appreciate that. So the next item on the agenda, item G for a day again, ordinance with utility tax rebate program amendment. Yep. And this is action.
Yep. And I want to thank Council President Onda and also this committee in working with the committee to give us idea. and I met with them. I think that was last week, and it turned out really good. I hope, you know. So collaboratively, this is what we came up with, having a flat amount. You know, we have the proposed change is to extend the program period to the end of May. Again, the goal of these changes is to make it easier for our residents to file for this and to make it easier also for the city to process. So the changes is to extend to the end of May. That will allow more people after they get out of filing their tax return, will allow more people to do that. Also, instead of requesting that we will pay for what they actually pay, in order for us to pay what they actually pay, that means they will have to submit 12 months of utility bills. And it is difficult for anybody or for most people to be able to accumulate 12 months of a record. So what we've decided, what this is proposing is $100 maximum, and that $100 is broken down by having $20 for gas, 25 for electric, 15 for water, 15 for sewer, 15 for garbage, and telephone, cell phone, and cable, $10 combined, with a maximum of $100. And all they have to do is just give us one of the individual bill they're asking for, not 12 months worth, just to make sure that they are paying. And also, we're making it easier if somebody is renting where one or two of the utility is included in the rent. All they have to provide for us is the rent agreement that says utility tax is paid, and we can reimburse it. So it's intended to make it easier for them and make it easier for the city also. So that is what these changes are. I think because we work with them, I felt I hope, again, I really appreciate what Council President Under has done and what the committee also have supported. I appreciate what the committee, the Senior Citizens Committee, what they did also. So that is it.
Okay. Thank you very much today. Council President Honda, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I feel like I'm talking more than anyone else tonight. So thank you, Ade, for coming. And Chase came also to the Senior Commission meeting last week. This was something that the commissioners put together a small group, and they studied what they wanted and presented to the whole commission. And they were in agreement that this seemed fair and would work, and that it would be easier for the folks who qualify, because not everyone qualifies for the rebate program. Instead of having to have 12 months of every bill and make copies of it and get it to the city, that this was something that would work, and that they were very happy with this. So thank you very much. I know you put a lot of work into it today, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, is there a motion to move forward?
Yeah. Yes, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to first reading June 1st, 2021.
Thank you very much. I'll second that. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. We're at the last item on the agenda again today with the update on the OpenGov software.
I think because the OpenGov, and actually, let me see if I can show my screen. I'll try to do this quickly. Okay. We've been spending just about maybe about 2 hours a week in working with them to set this up. These are our numbers. And uh, this is what, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this looks really cool.
So this is what it will look like. We have some of the numbers that we have in there are 2019, 2020. So transaction.
And a day, would this look this way for anybody accessing this information, or is it special because of your access?
Or actually, what we're going to do, we will give certain access to the council, certain access to the directors, certain access to the public.
Okay, wonderful.
The reason why it will be different, because we will also be using this for budget, so that you can access, I think one of the questions that came up, oh, we want to see what the directors requested for, what the finance director proposed, what the mayor is recommending. So by having that, you'll be able to do that. Part of the information that, take for example, the voucher approval, what we just did today, we're trying to set that up that you can go onto this report and be able to access it.
A day.
Yes, Councilmember Coachman.
We're losing you. We're
Okay.
losing you.
Oh. So that is the plan. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. So that is what we are hoping for, to give council different access, give the public different access, because we want to be able to give you access more than you have now. And directors, the report that we often do on Excel and send to the director, we want to be able to use this system to do that. Since we're only sending it to the directors, then, so that is part of what at the end of the day, and that is why this is taking so long, to make sure we're able to group what is accessible to the public and what is accessible. For example, employee pay. Yes, the public may know what we're paying employee, but they may not have access to their social security number or whatever. So that is why some of those things are different. So from there, I can say, okay, I want to see this by department. So right at the bottom, you can say, okay, actually, I just want to see what finance department is doing. So you are able to see the spending by finance department by month. You can say, okay, go back to this. Say, okay, fine. Actually, let's see. I want to see fund. We're talking about red light. Okay, this one is showing just general fund. You can do just the finance. Nope. So you can select whatever it is that you want from this. If you want a particular vendor, you can look for that, which is part of what the voucher process is all about. In budget, this is actually where we're trying to, the amendment that the committee just reviewed, actually we're trying to use this system to do that amendment as well, to see how well it will work. So I think, so we've been putting a lot of time into this to make sure it is accessible and makes it easier. So just the expenses for Dumas Pay, so if I were to click on this, It gives you all the numbers. So as I mentioned, look at this number, adjustment input. So this is what we were doing yesterday. For this line item, professional services, the original budget is 4,000. The adjustment that we're trying to make now is adding additional 21,000 to it. So if the council approve additional 21, the total proposed is 25,659. Cleaning for COVID-19. That is why we're having to adjust that. So these are the things that will be more easier for the council to review. And you are having to wait for the paperwork from me. I think when we finish with this, you will be able to log in at midnight and just peruse through this. So, but it is taking a while to get this all together. But this is what I'm hoping we will be able to do with this software.
Ask a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Sabadossan.
Thank you. So, Ade, we're going to look at what you just talked about, the professional services. Let's say, if I want to see the actual invoice, do I have access to that?
Actually, where we are now, remember this is just budget.
Okay.
So if we go back to this report.
Let's go to expenditure.
Yeah, so if we go, yes, we will be able to see, but some of those invoices, you'll be able to see the description until we scan, because you're asking for the specific invoice. Until we scan the invoice itself in, you may not be able to see the hard copy of the invoice. You may be able to see the description, the number that we enter, but you will not be able to see the invoice itself until we scan it in. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you, Ade, for showing this to us. Do you know when it's going to go live?
I think when we finish all of this setup, I think part of what I'm trying to work with the mayor, and we'll see when we hire my replacement, I want to be able to finish this if it's all possible, because thinking that the new person will have his or her hands full. So, but I'll work that with the mayor to be able to finish this or be able to devote time to make sure we get it done. And while the new person is catching up with the day-to-day, I think we can relieve him of this new. So, but that is my desire. I have not worked out the detail with the mayor yet.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ade. I can't see hands or anything. Is there anybody else with any other questions? Okay, seeing none, or hearing none.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, council member.
Yeah. So Ade, is there a way you can show us the level of access the general public would have? Is there a sample here?
I'm sorry, you're going in and out. I didn't quite make out what you said.
So we have different levels of access to this to this budget information.
Yes.
So for the general public, can you show me what it would look like if I was to
as of
go
now,
online to look at it?
Actually, because it's only me and them and Chase that are working on this, we have not set up the definition yet of what the council will see, what the directors will see, what the public will see. What I'm hoping, we will create the specific report that the public will be able to see, and also be able to create, the council needs to be able to see pretty much all of the report that we have. But I think the public access will be limited to certain areas. But as of now, we have now created that.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you very much today. Are there any other items for the good of the agenda? Seeing none, looks like we've come to the end of our meeting.
Okay.
Our future meeting, our next meeting will be June 22nd at 5 p.m. And hopefully Han will be chair at that time. Thank you all for being here this evening, and the meeting is adjourned at 6:31 p.m. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Good night.
Good night.